Simon, appreciate you sharing your time and knowledge with us today. I suppose before we get into the details, do you want to just give everyone a little bit of an introduction to yourself and I guess your journey within cybersecurity?
Yeah. So I guess my journey started when I was 15. I ended up finding a forum called ChaseNet. The ChaseNet is where they developed the tools Poison Ivy, Bifrost, Beast, and a few other remote administration tools. So I guess my journey started by basically talking to the developers. So it was kind of the developers on there that sort of like kids could just sort of join this forum and just learn how to learn how to breach computers. And as a teenage kid, it's like, it's great because you're playing pranks on your mates. I guess it started as like a practical joke sort of thing.
Yeah.
My mate showed me Sub 7, a tool called Sub 7, made by a guy called Mobman. His real name is Gregory Hannes. We're in quite on one of his sort of like forums now. We chat quite a bit on Discord. But he was the kind of the same, I guess. He just sort of fell into a young age, but he started developing that tool. And for me, it was a friend that showed me Sub 7. I was like, I can play pranks on my friends on Instant Messenger. And it all sort of went from there, just opening and closing the CD-ROM, flipping the screen, talking to them through like Notepad. And then, you got antivirus. Okay, how do I bypass the antivirus? And before you know it, you're red teaming as a kid. So, yeah.
Quite an organic journey through then. I suppose, so today, obviously you and I have been talking a little bit on LinkedIn there, and you raised a topic that's obviously close to your heart. So we decided to do this call. So we're going to be discussing a little bit of awareness around Asperger's syndrome and the difficulties that can pose for people looking to find work. So I hope you don't mind me saying that you sort of have Asperger's yourself, and this is something you've experienced through your job search recently, and I'm sure in the past as well. What have you found have been the main difficulties in that sort of area? And I suppose what made you think you wanted to speak so openly to help other people?
I guess, when I was a kid, I found it like really, really hard to make eye contact. I used to walk with my hands bolt right to my sides. Like I really kind of couldn't communicate. Probably a lot of the reason I started hacking is because it allowed me to communicate. It was a formal. It was a kind of a conduit. It allowed me to basically communicate without having to communicate face to face. I think that was a big part of the hacking, because a lot of it was we were talking on forums. So we established communities with where I felt comfortable. I always kind of felt very high. I still get bad anxiety around new people. So come to meet my girlfriend's family, and if there's a lot of them and I don't know them at first, it can take my anxiety levels are spiked, because until I kind of know people, once I've kind of met them a few times, completely fine. But it can be bad. So I think a lot of the reason a lot of autistic kids end up on hacking forums is because of that. It gives them a place to kind of feel comfortable and talk to people. And I guess it has been hard through the jobs, through kind of working in this industry, because I've done a lot of interviews. So I've got very used to kind of almost predicting people. I kind of know what they're going to ask next. I can predict their questions even now, because I've done so many. But especially at the beginning, it was very hard. When I first started and I was working at a company called Pro Checkup, the director there, Richard Brain, absolute genius, definitely has Asperger's as well. He used to design guided missile systems for the government.
Wow.
He loves his long matrix coat, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I love Richard. He's as odd as me. He's as odd as me. So that's probably why I got on well with him. We were talking about invisibility cloaks and stuff that the military had. These would be our conversations in the office. But yeah, he's the managing director there. And it was a guy called Darren Radcliffe, ex-MOD guy, that originally hired me. I guess Darren was probably more like the face of the company. Richard, very, very technical. Probably, I'm going to be honest, because I'm not the best with clients either. He probably wasn't the best with clients, whereas Darren was very good with talking to people. He found me. He could see my interest and sort of took me on. But I struggled. I had depression for years. decades almost of depression. Even now, sometimes I don't think I get depressed really now, but sometimes I can feel a bit off. I'm easily triggered off, I guess. So I guess it's hard, because it's hard finding companies that sort of like understand us. It's hard to get through the interviews because of like the eye contact. Maybe the way we talk. I can go off on tangents and don't always stick to the question. Someone will ask a question and I'll just start talking off at all angles. So it's sort of keeping that focus in the interview. I guess we communicate differently. When I communicate, say, via email now, sometimes I might send one email and I'll send like 6 more, because the way my mind's working is I should probably wait and then get it all down, but I'm just firing off. And I think just the way we maybe lack a bit of structure. We might kind of like have not a lot of knowledge there, but I kind of say it as I'm thinking it, which isn't always the best way to communicate.
No, that's fair enough. I presume you're sort of not on your own there. I do have some friends that have Asperger's, been diagnosed previously, and I think very similar to what you said there. It's having the getting used to having your brain sort of working just a little bit differently. One of the things you did touch on is the sort of the community aspect, the online forums and things like that, and that was something else that we did discuss. And it was about the sort of unused talent within the cyber hacking community, for want of a better word or want of a better phrase, and how I think because some of the frustrations that we've spoken about, they can sometimes be led down like a less than above board path, shall we say? This is something that you've sort of encountered, isn't it? I mean, that was also something you wanted to talk about, wasn't it?
I've come across various individuals over the years. Like I came across some American hackers that in the end I had to actually talk to the National Crime Agency, because they were doing mad stuff. Like, I mean, the guy was a really nice guy, and I tried getting him. I did get him a job in the end. I got him a job. I won't mention names because he's actually working in quite a big American company now, so I'm hoping he's good. At the time, like, they were attacking Russia. I mean, I guess it's okay because they're in America and they're attacking Russia, but they're still attacking. They're attacking government military bases in Korea and Russia. And then they were like, one day they were like, we're going to just hack a crypto exchange. And this guy was not a stupid guy. He found a 0-day in VirtualBox. So he found a breakout in VirtualBox. And, as you know, a lot of security is based on sort of virtualization, containerization.
Sure.
If you can break out of VMs, that's a pretty big deal. Couldn't get jobs, couldn't make the eye contact in the interviews. The HR said he was the right sort of person for the job. Absolute genius. And him and his friends, they were very, very rogue, because his attitude was, we had a 2-hour chat on the phone. His attitude was pretty angry. It was kind of like, well, they won't give me a job, and and they treat me like I'm some sort of idiot, so F them almost, and that is what I've seen a lot amongst kind of some hackers online, especially some of the very advanced hackers. They're not given a chance, and then they end up sort of hating society. Also, I talked to a Serbian hacker recently that contacted me, who was actually going to try and get me a job at one point, and he sent me a song by 9 Inch Nails. I'll try and find the song at some point and send it. If you listen to the lyrics, it says it all. It says like, this world rejects me, this world threw me away, and the lyrics are just whoa. I was like, yeah, I get it. For me,
just rang a bell instantly.
Yeah, for me, I pushed on. I lost a lot of jobs, probably like 7 jobs I probably got fired from. I found security vulnerabilities in 2 security companies in the UK. I won't say which ones because they're very big.
Sure.
I told them to try and help them. I got fired from one company for doing that. I told another security company it was vulnerable to try and help it, and then I got fired. So I just stopped looking for stuff. Just completely stopped looking for stuff, because I was like, if you don't look, it can be taken either way. It can either be taken as you're trying to help, or they can take it very badly.
The other way, yeah.
I guess the hardest thing is we tend to say what we think a lot. Maybe that's not a good thing, or maybe it is a good thing, because at least we're kind of being honest with what we think.
Yeah, it's endearing honesty. It can be taken as. One of the other things you mentioned as well is proactive defense. I that's going to help sort of to help get young people a foot in the door, and ways we can sort of improve that process. I mean, what are your...
It's finding them. So finding these hackers online before they start like joining ransomware gangs, because I could tell you where a lot of these people are. Like, you know, I've gone and out of my way to find these people, because I read a book when I was younger called Donnie Brasco. It was about can't remember his name now, Joseph. I can't remember his second name, but it was about the FBI agent that infiltrated the mafia. And like, you can infiltrate these people, these black cats. Like, they seem to reckon that it's not possible. Nuance, I had a chat with my manager the other day. He said, you know, you can't infiltrate them because they're too regimented. Maybe some of these Russian guys are ex-military, so maybe they can't be infiltrated. But a lot of the black cats that are online can be infiltrated just by befriending them and then trying to make them become white hats, bring them over. But if they're doing stupid stuff, you need to kind of get someone involved to stop them before they end up getting themselves locked in jail for like 10 years. So sometimes it's good to get other people involved just to sort of stop them at the beginning.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, I was going to touch on that in terms of how we would go about not educating, I suppose, but I mean, I suppose from the other side of the fence as well. Obviously, you spoke there in terms of what organisations could do to get them on board. I mean, what are the sort of, I mean, something you touched on earlier, you know, was interview processes, and I guess that awareness of, you know, the fact that, you know, you might struggle a little bit with eye contact. I mean, what areas would you like to see improved from an onboarding perspective from a client or an organisation?
I guess the HR sort of realizing that, I guess, what they consider to be sort of like a good interview for someone that's neurotypical will be very, very hard for someone with Asperger's. Like, I've practiced so many times and now I can make eye contact. Sometimes I stare, so I have to think about how much I'm looking. And because my mum used to force me to make eye contact as a kid, like, she said, if you don't, people won't trust you. So now I'm always kind of conscious about my eye contact. Am I staring too much? Am I not looking enough?
You can overthink it a little bit.
So I guess the fact that they might kind of fidget a bit, they might not make eye contact easily, their way of talking can be, even I'm noticing myself sometimes, that I can be quite monotone. The way they communicate might be quite rigid. I guess in the HR instance, maybe they need kind of more of an educating themselves, because I find like the HR is a barrier to entry for a lot of people that are very technical. These people might go into an interview and start talking about like buffer overflows and stuff, or ROP chaining, and the person not going to have a clue what they're talking about. They might be really good at this stuff, but if they're not hitting the right keywords like Kali Linux or Burp Suite, they might not get the job. Like, and this is madness. And then they're like, okay, I can't get a job, and then they do stupid things. So it's sort of, I guess there needs to be more filter down from the technical guys to the HR, sort of what they should be looking for, and having and being able to make adjustments for people that are on the spectrum, because they do communicate differently. Even after years of being in the industry and working at a lot of companies, I still communicate differently. And I've said to my manager now that I've done a lot of communications training where I am, and I said, I don't know if I'll ever be able to be like what is perfect communicating. But I try. But sometimes, you know, if stuff builds up, you know, you can kind of have kind of almost like autistic meltdowns even. It's like, we hyper focus. We like to focus heavily on one thing. So, you know, one task at a time, but it can be a very complicated task. We like to really focus. We don't like focus broken. I don't know if it's like that with people you know, but with me, girlfriend that's got it as well, I think.
Yeah, very similar. So yeah, really, it is just a case of raising awareness, and like you say, education from the top down as well. I suppose just to sign off, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I am aware that, like you said, you are sort of away at the moment. If you were to give some advice right now, aspiring hackers that might be, they might be experiencing the same frustrations that you've experienced, or you've seen other people experience, what sort of advice would you give to them to try and help them moving forward?
Don't give up, because I kept losing jobs, and it's tempting. I had people that were willing to pay me a lot of money to be bad, but something kept me good. I don't know what kept me there. I guess I don't know. Like, there must be like a moral thing in you that you don't have like any sort of control over. It must just either be there or not be there. I don't know.
Try not to.
Don't give up. don't give up. Like, you know, there was times where I couldn't even buy food, like, you know, because I'd just been fired from the job. I had to pay the rent, and like, I had no money left. So it's like, it was bad. But just don't give up, and go and try and join companies that have a good understanding. You know, companies like NCC Group, they were really good there for me. Tony Durrell, absolutely amazing guy. When I was really bad with depression, with my Asperger's at the time, he offered to pay me when I wasn't even working, and I turned around and I said, I can't accept money. You know, I don't know when I'm going to get better. I don't know. My anxiety was so bad I couldn't leave the house, so I didn't know when I would get better. So but they are, you know, NCC really do understand autism, because I think they might have a lot of people with autism there.
Nice.
So companies that don't just sort of just preach it online, but actually really do have people on the spectrum, I guess, working there that, you know, going to have a better understanding then. Microsoft are doing a lot. They're doing interviews and stuff like Minecraft, because I think they've realised that a lot of us come from like gaming backgrounds, and then we go into the hacking. It's almost like you start gaming as a kid and you end up in the hacking world somehow.
Like passage.
Yeah, it's like a passage. But yeah, I guess selecting companies carefully. For me, I just joined companies, but I didn't probably really research enough. I researched into how technical the companies are and what they were doing. I didn't research really into whether they would support me or not, or whether they would understand me. So I guess doing that research before you join a company, do they have people with, you know, autism there or Asperger's there? Do they have that sort of understanding? Because a lot of companies will say that they support it, but when it comes down to it, they want the positives without the negatives. So they want the photographic memories, they want the really technical guys, but they have to realize that sometimes these guys might get depression, you know, and depression is not something that you can just ring a hotline and it disappears. You know, it's hard.
So yeah, maybe do so a little bit of research. Maybe if you're able to get in touch with someone that does work there and maybe pick their brains as well. But no, that's amazing, Simon. I do appreciate your time today. I'll let you go and enjoy your time away, even though you are still working technically. But I appreciate it. I'll get this up onto LinkedIn. Hopefully people will enjoy it as well. But until then, I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks a lot.